Connecting to the cloud. And we're on. Hey. Ayo, it's your boy, Auzzy. The juice is worth the squeeze. Della Longa. And with me is Zachary. Just a touch of honey. Foth. Zach, how's it going?
Hey, just a touch.
Oh,
It's going good, my man. Happy to be back.
awesome. Glad to have you back. It's been too long. I kicked Steve off the podcast if you're watching the YouTube. Yeah, he's MIA. Just kidding. Steve will be back eventually. But for now, it's ya boys. Okay, I'm done with that now. Holding down the fort. And you'll see a change of
That's right.
scenery again if you're watching on YouTube. My internet connection in my office is trash. So here we
Mhm.
are in the living room and hoping the dog doesn't go crazy. Anyways, so
Hey,
Zach, oh sorry.
they'll see a change of scenery on both ends here.
Oh yeah, Zach, where are you
Yeah.
at, buddy?
I'm at my office right now, down at work. So far the internet connection's all up to speed here. So we're looking good so far.
Heck yeah. And I love the flex. My office, he says. So
Oh, sorry.
Zach took that amateur agency money and bought an office. And
We're not
it's a
supposed to
very nice
talk about
office.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It's all right. So last week, Steve and I, we had to hold our tongues while we had an interview, and we missed out on some free agency signings. So this is our free agency recap episode. We've got a lot to cover, Zachary, but we won't get to all the signings, unfortunately, but get some big ones in memory, or not in memory, in honor of Steve, not being. Oh God, who gave this guy the mic?
You're doing great. Come on.
In honor of Steve not being on today, we're going to start with his Seahawks, his beloved Seahawks, who are almost fumbling the ball a little bit with Russell Wilson, who there was some rumors he might be getting traded, maybe to the Bears, maybe to the Raiders, maybe to the Cowboys was another one that was mentioned. But as of right now, it looks pretty well like Russell Wilson's getting some say in some of the signings. Um, and I saw, oh wait, nope, that was last year, him working out with AB. But he ended up getting some offensive line help. They traded for Gabe Jackson, a guard from the Las Vegas Raiders, who are just decimating their line right now on their own volition, which is really weird. And they signed Gerald Everett from the LA Rams, who was kind of lost in the tight end depth that they had there. And then they signed Akella Witherspoon. So a couple guys from the division, Akella Witherspoon, a corner. Zach, any thoughts on this Russell Wilson saga, or what are your thoughts on the on some of these signings here?
Well, I'll start with the Russell Wilson saga because it made absolutely no sense to me. Him picking those three teams, maybe a little bit the Cowboys. However, they shut that down instantly. Jerry Jones, I'm pretty sure, came out and was like, yeah, that's not happening. And then they signed Dak right away. And then he left it to the Raiders and the Bears, which is interesting to me. Like, John Gruden's a great coach, but he's not a great personnel guy. Like, here's my thing. If he was to have jumped to the Raiders or to the Bears, both teams just can't get it done on the personnel side right now. And what they would need to give up for that would put them even more in a deficit on the personnel side. Russell, you gotta, there's some give and take here, and giving the right team that is ready for a playoff push to go win a Super Bowl with the right personnel. I felt like he was choosing the wrong teams. So I'm actually happy for him to stay in Seattle out of those options. And they won't be giving up, 4 first-round picks. So that's a good thing. But one scary thing for Seattle fans here that I've been looking at is it seems like they're gearing up to do what they always do. They're grabbing, like you said, Gabe Jackson, who was in run first system, building off the play action with the Raiders. They brought in Gerald Everett with the Rams, which that's the one signing I'm excited for to see what he can do as the feature tight end there. But they got one good signing actually on top of that too was Chris Carson, where they got him for only a 2.5 million cap hit, and it was for 2 years, which is pretty exciting for them. That's pretty cheap for, a top 10 running back when he's on the field in that system. But it just pushes them right back to they're going to be running the ball. They signed is it Belmore, Bellor, the fullback, for 2 years, 4.5 million. So it looks like the Seattle Seahawks are going right back to that run first formula and not giving any say to, Russell coming out being like, I want to be traded so I can go somewhere where they'll change it up a bit. But they're like, no, we're going to keep it with exactly what we're doing here. Okay. And you'll be really happy about that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year to say the least about that situation.
No, yeah, that's it's going to be a lot of let Russ hand the ball off instead of let Russ cook. He's going to be like, let Russ sous chef or something like that instead.
Right? They won't.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to say that like him wanting to go to the Raiders kind of made sense in the sense that they had really all the pieces of an offensive line that a guy would want to go to. And they've got a lot of young talent on defense and like Josh Jacobs at running back. But then the Raiders just traded they got rid of all their good linemen. Rodney Hudson, the center, goes to Arizona, and then Gabe Jackson goes to Seattle. So it's like, wow, now he wouldn't want to go there even if they sent like 17 first round picks. Right. So not ideal.
Man. I feel bad for it because it feels like there's no direction. Well, it seems like there's a direction. Pete and Schneider are going in the direction that they've always went, and Russell Wilson's not for that anymore. And you can feel that tension in between the two parties. So the fact that maybe the trade won't happen this year, which was dumb actually on Seattle's, if you look at it from Seattle's point of view, if they go into this year and, Russell might have a down year compared to last year, statistically, his value might dwindle and he might not be worth, 4 first round picks. So I know Seattle fans aren't going to want to hear it because they love Russell Wilson and they don't want to see him go, but you also got to make sure you don't jump into a Carson Wentz situation where at top value, you could get a lot for him, but then you have a down year and he's worth a second round pick. Not saying Russell's going to fall off that much, but you kind of have Russell at his peak right now, 32, I think his age is exactly. And that's kind of that threshold for a quarterback is, he's in his prime right now, the end of his prime with, unless you're Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
In his prime for, knowing defenses, knowing offenses, and being able to do the best he can with the roster around him. So, we could really see a fall off for what they get back next year if they're in the same situation, which they're definitely steering towards by all these signings and what they're doing this offseason.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. To play a little bit of devil's advocate with you, Zachary, to be fair, Russell had like one of the worst fall offs the second half of the season. So if they were to kind of move off of him, I wonder if they didn't get a lot of push in terms of teams like offering a lot, because there was a guy like Deshaun Watson before his scandals has kind of grown into something like quite horrific. He was looking like he was going to be a guy that people would give up full drafts for. So I wonder if having another guy on the market was kind of making the Seahawks or making other teams weary of giving up a lot of draft capital for a guy in his 32nd age season when there's a guy in his like 25 age season who's probably untapped potential still, and who is available for trade. But now I feel like that's just dead in the water. But yeah, that was me playing a little bit of devil's advocate.
My thing here is what I heard the rumor was when they were going to trade, or the trade rumor with Chicago, there was a rumor that came out that the fall off was that there was no quarterback in return, and they didn't feel like they could get a top guy this draft to replace Russell Wilson. So clearly they don't want to hit the reset button. Clearly they want to hit the let's do the same thing over and over again here and attack again. And that's a scary situation. You don't want to be in purgatory. You want to either increase or do something to change what's happened in the past. And they're kind of falling into that make the playoff early out in the playoff team. And ever since the Super Bowl, that's what we're kind of accustomed to, man. And that's a scary thing for the Seahawks. You know, I've given Russell, I think he's amazing. Like a team who's ready to go to the Super Bowl and like is a quarterback away, like, and made a push for him and gave up a lot for a Super Bowl. Hi, Jasper.
Sorry about that. I think he's got to go outside. I don't have defense systems with the door anymore.
I love it. And a guest on the show, Jasper.
Jasper Red Rocket Della Longa.
Oh my God. Andy Dalton runs in. He's like, that's my name. More on Andy Dalton later. But yeah, no, I think it's a really weird situation right now in Seattle. These guys need to change something up. They're clearly not going to do that. And I think it's just going to grow that tension more, unfortunately. Good way to conclude that.
I'm just going to, one sec. Jasper is barking and we're still recording. I'm sorry about this. Okay. And anyways, yes, moving on, Zach, thank you for the closing remarks there. Sorry, everybody, for the terrible podcast hosting right now. We just had a delivery at the door and Jasper's losing his mind. So moving on to my Patriots, who have been going crazy in free agency. And this was kind of a shock, kind of not really. Nobody knew how they would handle having all this cap space to spend. And man, like I'm super pumped with a lot of the guys that they signed. They spent a lot of money. One might argue that it's been on not top tier talent. They had a lot of cap space and they could have gotten better players. I think that because of this roster being where it was at in terms of that wide receiver room being terrible, the tight end room being even worse than the wide receivers, which was already so bad. We retooled on the offensive line. I think that this was about as good as it could have gotten. And one is going to say, hey, Austin, I know you're being too optimistic. You're being optimistic Oz, but I'm putting on my optimistic Oz hat right now because I look at these guys and I think that there's some really good fits here. And I'll go through the list quick and get your thoughts, Zach. I'm sure that you'll have your doubts, but we got Kendrick Bourne from the San Francisco 49ers, Matthew Judon. For the positions. Kendrick Bourne's wide receiver, Matthew Judon, edge rusher from the Ravens, Hunter Henry, tight end, Jonnu Smith, tight end. Those are the top two coming off the free agency board. Ted Karras came over from Miami. He was with the Patriots for a bit at center. Re-signed David Andrews, who was looking to be out and came back. And Jalen Mills at safety from the Eagles. Kyle Van Noy at linebacker. If you're a football fan, you would recognize the name. He was a Patriots player for a few years. And then Nelson Aguilar, who kind of scares me, but I don't mind the pickup based on his production last year. All in all, I'm very pleased with this haul of players because it gets us depth at the very least that we did not have. I would take Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar over what we had last year any day of the week. It was horrendous to watch. It was just sickening at times, quite literally. Enough talking from my end. Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
You think I'm coming in here and I'm going to shit on it, but, you know, this is classic Belichick doing what everyone else isn't doing. And with how the cap is going down, it went down, and a lot of teams are scared to spend. And Belichick was like, well, I'm going bargain hunting. I'm going to pick up a lot of players and do my thing, get what, I do well. And he got two top tight ends, the two top tight ends in free agency, pretty good deals for their age too. Like both these guys could see second contracts with this team afterwards if they play well. I think that was amazing. They give Cam an awesome opportunity here because he is, look at the years with Olsen. That was his best catching receiver, and it was a tight end for how many years? Now he's got two top tight ends, and that's going to be huge for Cam. He needs it. He's not a good thrower of the football, and he needs big targets. I'm not as impressed with the wide receivers that they signed. Not trying to bring down your enthusiasm about them, but like in my opinion, there was better talent out there that they could have signed for arguably the same deal. I would have rather Corey Davis than Nelson Aguilar, and they signed pretty much a similar deal. Nelson Aguilar, in my opinion's number 2 wide receiver, very, very low end first. I wouldn't put him as a first receiver, but the nice thing about what you guys got here is now you have depth at wide receiver. So they'll be able to spread these guys out. If Edelman comes back, which I don't know, you'd know if he announced that he's coming back for the season, because there was question there. If they get him back, he is coming back, or nothing yet? Sorry.
Nothing yet. Sorry.
Okay. If he comes back, then, that's good depth now. They could still improve. It's funny, they made all these signings, but they could still definitely improve at the wide receiver room. But they got improvements there, and now I think guys like N'Keal Harry will not have so much pressure on them. And then who is number 6? Was it 16 or 19? He led your team in receiving yards last year.
Oh, Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah, I like him too, but this will give him an opportunity to really flourish when he has all the pressure off of him, right?
Exactly, so,
yeah. As much as I don't like Cam Newton, and this isn't me saying I like Cam Newton at all, there's going to be better weapons around him for him to look a little bit better, and he'll be a good bridge quarterback into whatever you guys do next there, which is good. I hope you guys are looking draft or something for quarterback for the future, but you guys got Matthew Judon too on the 4-year, $56 million contract, and I like that in comparisons to what Bud Dupree went for this offseason. So I think he's one of those guys that comes into your system right away and flourishes with Bill Belichick. He was with the Ravens prior, and that's a pretty good system as well. But Bill Belichick always gets the best out of his defensive players, and I think that's just like a beautiful fit. So you guys were lacking a lot of talent, and Bill Belichick was like, I'm going to take advantage of everyone not wanting to spend, and I'm going to go get some talent that is needed on this team. So I'd feel good if I was a Patriots fan.
Heck yeah. Well, seeing that team that we rostered last year go 7-9, and now you add in actual tight ends that can take a lot of pressure off for the quarterback, whoever's at quarterback, I would be comfortable with Cam Newton being our QB1 going into 2021. I'd be fine with Jarrett Stidham, seeing what he's got. I think that we've got a really quarterback friendly offense now. And this type of offense that they want to run, I don't think you need like a true number 1 wide receiver. It would be nice to have as always, but having the 2 tight ends that you do that can really do it all. They're not the greatest in run blocking, but they're really good in the passing game. And then you have complementary guys like Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. I think that this is really good for any quarterback to come in, and it does set the table for a Patriots quarterback being drafted in the first round. I'd love to see a trade up, but at the same time, I'm totally happy to see how this offense would be under like a Cam Newton or a Jarrett Stidham. I was looking at Nelson Aguilar's stats actually too, because I was so curious. I bashed him while he was with the Eagles for 5 years. Yeah, he's with the Eagles 5 years, and just bashed him like crazy because he had such a bad case of the drops. But he was kind of flirting with 1,000 yards as a receiver a year in 2018. And he has over 800 two other seasons. And then last year he had 8 touchdowns, 731 yards. Like, he's no slouch actually. And it was kind of impressive to see that, just kind of based on the view that he's kind of made for himself because of all of his drops. So not too bad there. And so, anyways, yeah, I'll stop gushing over
No.
my patties. Um,
I love the optimism, Ozzy.
yeah,
I really
exactly.
do think I like Nelson Aguilar as a number two. I really do. He's a deep threat, and that's exciting. Cam could really use one of those. So
Seriously.
I think if he plays that, and I would really like to see N'Keal Henry um, develop into the player you guys drafted in 2019. He's got the build for it. And, in my opinion, you give a receiver 3 years, unless you're a top level talent. And N'Keal Henry was drafted in the first round. However, I don't think most wide receivers, we were really lucky last year with the wide receiver class. This year has a good wide receiver class as well, but most of the time it takes these guys a few years to kind of get into their own, as you see with Nelson Aguilar and you see with Corey Davis. So I think N'Keal Harry, this is kind of his year. There's a little bit of pressure on him, but at the same token, there's a little bit of pressure off him because now you guys have more weapons there. And I think it's going to clear up a lot of space for him. Imagine those two tight end sets with Jonu and Henry. Man, both those guys were red zone threats. Like that's going to be, and you put them in, and you don't know if you're going to run on the 1 or 2 yard line with Cam or what you're going to do there. So I think you guys are setting up for something really special in red zone offense. But we'll wait and see.
Exactly. It was one of the worst last year, so that'd be super nice. One thing I'm well aware of now is a lot of people have been pushing back, saying that teams that have quote unquote, won the free agency period have actually done quite horrendously. And if you look at the reasons why, it's no wonder why. It's the teams that generally have lots of cap space are in rebuild mode. So it just so happens the Patriots finished 7-9 last year and had a lot of cap space this year. So my optimism, yes, I understand it needs to be tempered a little bit, but at the same time, to all those haters out there that are saying, "Oh, the Patriots won in March, that doesn't mean anything." Well, it doesn't mean anything now, but I think that it's gearing up for something. And now, enough of that. Speaking of gearing up for something, I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on your Brownies, Zach. Your Browns had
Yes.
they had a few signings, but they had impactful signings, and I just love what they've done.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
I'm not going to say anymore. You tell everybody else what the Browns have done.
Yeah, it's been an interesting offseason. It scares the hell out of me that you sit here and tell me that having a good offseason with signings is usually turns out to be horrendous in the end. But I think this is different. I think these were big but quiet signings that help our team out to build on our weaknesses. Biggest one, most people know about this. We got John Johnson from the Rams safety on a very team friendly deal, 4 years, 33.75 million. Some of that's incentive, which is super exciting because he was the top safety in free agency. He played really well with the Rams, and we needed a boost and a guy who's going to anchor the back end. Now, people, our safety group was one of the worst in the league last year. However, we did have two things going for us there. When Ronnie Harrison was playing for the Browns, he played very, very well. He had a few injuries here and there, and we got him from Jacksonville in a trade for, I think, a 5th-round pick or something last year, which is outstanding for how he played. Grant Delpit, we drafted in the 2nd round last year, and he tore his Achilles in camp last year, or what was camp, COVID camp. And he's coming back. He's a big-bodied safety, and I'm really excited to see what happens there. So we've built good depth at the safety position now, which I'm really excited for. We have Sheldrick Redwine there, who's a great depth safety and can get in there for a few snaps a game, which he plays with aggression, and I like that. But those top 3 can all be starters in this league, and 2 of them high end, and we're not sure of Delpit yet. He came out of LSU with a high ceiling. So that's really exciting. We really needed to fix that over there. We also got Anthony Walker Jr., middle linebacker from the Colts, who has been there throughout, this transformation of the Colts into this, beast on defense, which is really exciting. He was a 5th-round pick with the Colts, and he developed into almost 400 yards. He had 400 yards or 400, tackles within his time with the Colts. He had a few interceptions, it was like 10 passes deflected, 2 forced fumbles, a very well-rounded middle linebacker, which is what we're actually getting away from BJ Goodson, who is such a run stopper. He did develop a little bit into the pass coverage, but we wanted a more well-rounded middle linebacker. We got that with him. And then Tack McKinley, he's an interesting one. So we haven't re-signed Olivier Vernon, our defensive end who got injured at the end of the year, was finally coming on as a Brown and then got hurt at the end of the year. But Tack's interesting because he's not the veteran that Olivier was, but he was a guy who was drafted late in the 1st round by the Falcons, had 6 sacks his rookie year, and then kind of fell off, kind of had one of those moments in his career where it was more of he was failing physicals and doing things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if we can kind of get him back to focus and to be that 1st-round pick talent that he was coming into the league. I'm excited. I hope we kind of use him more in a depth position, and we are going to attack another end because we need someone across from Garrett. But we also made a really cool one. I think, Auzzy, you like this one too. Malik Jackson. A lot of you might know him from 2015 when he won the championship with the Denver Broncos at defensive tackle. He's kind of a pass rushing D tackle with the ability to stuff the run as well. He's 31, but the exciting thing about bringing him on is we had Larry Ogunjobi there who played the same role. I think they're actually very similar players, but Malik brings more experience and more ability to, I think he won the Super Bowl with the Eagles too, Malik Jackson, actually. So that's cool. So we have a 2-time Super Bowl champion, I guess, there, which is something we needed on the defense to build that veteran presence. But if there's one thing we can say here, and you guys are listening to me just gush about my Browns, is we're fixing the stuff that didn't work last year. Myles Garrett was given all the pressure to be the only pass rusher last year until Olivier Vernon came on at the end. And it looks like we're trying to make it so not everything's on him, which will be really nice. But the big thing is we got the back end looking good, and we really needed to do that. We should have increased pass rush with Garrett, Malik, Sheldon Richardson, and McKinley, and hopefully we figure something else out. If not in free agency, we look back into the draft. But in the back end, our safety group looked from one of the worst now to one of the best, and that makes me feel great. And then corners, we also signed Troy Hill, who is more of a veteran corner, which will be great to have as we get Greedy back and hopefully Ward can stay healthy. This defense is starting to look more like a well-rounded unit, and we really needed to spend money there. So I'm gushing. Austin, hopefully you could bring some devil's advocate there too, because I've just got a red rocket, as we'd say, with them right now. But maybe I shouldn't say that on here. No, I'm just kidding. I don't got one of those.
Jasper's downstairs, so he's our red rocket mascot. God, can't believe I just said that. Anyways, so thank you if you're staying with us to this point. Anyways, so with the Browns, Zach, I wish I could kind of bring some devil's advocacy over here, but I do really, really like what the Browns have done. Their weakness last year, and I didn't think it'd be that big of a weakness with guys like Andrew Sendejo, and then trading for Ronnie Harrison, who was traded only after his rookie season, so quite unproven, but like he was a 2nd-round pick, so there was kind of a little bit of like, in my mind, there was kind of this expectation as to what this safety tandem should have been. Andrew Sendejo was probably one of the worst safeties last year. I don't know what his PFF grade was or anything, but every time he was on the field, it seemed like there was a big play going over his head, and I was like, Andrew, what are you doing?
Right. And I was excited for that signing
Yeah,
too.
I was too. I was like, let's
Yeah.
go reuniting with his old boy from Minnesota. But anyways, so I really like that you guys were aggressive in getting those spots filled. Same thing with Greedy Williams. Like he was an unproven product, but I was still very excited when you guys got him because I thought that the pairing of him, Greedy Williams, and Denzel Ward would have been just, it could have been one of the top young cornerback duos in the league. But unfortunately, Greedy's just battled injuries the 2 years that he's been in the league. And it's been 2 years now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year he's gone all year. So
Yeah. And so you haven't seen much out of him, and it's been very unfortunate. So to go out and grab a Troy Hill, where he's a solid, capable starter in this league, and pair him up with Denzel Ward, and if nothing else, it's depth. And hopefully, Greedy Williams can get back on track and kind of reach that potential that he had coming out of LSU, if memory serves me correctly. The Malik Jackson signing, you and I kind of talked about it before the pod, but I really, really love it. I love the thought of him, Sheldon Richardson, Myles Garrett on the line, and yeah, John Johnson to pair up with those young guys. I can't, I can't say anything bad about this Browns offseason so far because they just did what they needed to do. They've got the offensive weapons and the personnel there. They didn't need to do anything there. Quite frankly, I think that they could even get rid of OBJ. They just seem to, the offense seemed to click without him. And I still think they would be okay. They even re-signed Hollywood Higgins. So
woo.
can't say that they even missed out on kind of re-signing some of their key guys. I think that the Browns can really build off of what would probably be an overachieved season last year under Kevin Stefanski's first year, and really build on that into something that's kind of like a kind of what seems to be like the what could be the powerhouse of the AFC North, the next
So
best thing, because the Ravens aren't without their vulnerabilities, and the Steelers are kind of in a retooling stage, and the Bengals with Joe Burrow coming back, and they haven't done a whole lot in free agency to fix that offensive line. It's a little concerning there. I think the Browns could definitely be wearing the crown of AFC North.
interesting on that too, Ozzy. When we look back at Greedy Williams and Ward when they played side by side the year prior, Ward had actually taken a little bit of a fall off, and Greedy was playing out of his mind in his rookie season. So, but then Ward came back this third year when he was healthy and was playing as he should have. So it does for Browns fans, a healthy duo between the two is a very exciting thing still. The potential's still there. I think Greedy's only 22 or 23 now. Ward's turning 24. So like they have tons of room to grow, and our, with the safeties being that good, and now our D line improving, and our linebackers improving as well. Like I can't wait. I hope we bring, because the Browns were playing, I won't be too much longer on this. We were playing more bend, don't break defense. Next year, I want us to bring the mentality of we want to push it on that offense and make them feel uncomfortable, and then allow Baker and that offense to just drive the score up with that amazing running game and play action. Like sort of what like you saw from San Francisco in 2019. That's high expectation on the defense, but we're getting young talent, and it feels like that veteran presence that needs to be there to do something like that. But that's high praise. We got to make sure we do the right thing now through camps, preseason, and get to that point ready to go produce. And Baker's fighting for that big contract now, so it's exciting.
Exactly. Yeah, lots of optimism there. No surprise that us two are just gushing over our teams. But and who's your guys' defensive coordinator? Is it Steve Wilkes?
No, no, it's not. We have what's his name? Woods. Is it Joe Woods?
Joe Woods.
Where was he before? I
Where did
forget.
Steve Wilkes go?
Not there. Joe Woods. Now we're gonna go silent. But anyways,
Seriously, yeah. Oh, he's not even in the league right now. Nice.
yeah. A lot of people said Woods is more of an aggressive defensive coordinator. But he didn't actually get to do what he wanted to last year. He had to play under that bend, don't break. So it feels like we're really gearing up to be that team that kind of puts that pressure on the offenses. The nice thing here is we made a lot of signings of guys who are kind of in that early 30 range. So Hill from the Rams is 29 and Malik Jackson, who's 31. If we hit on the draft this year, we can build some depth that can eventually take over in 2 years as those depth pieces. So we got to hit, man. This is a big off season. So I'm excited.
Beauty. I love it. Finally, some true optimism from the Browns. They actually showed something last year, so let's build on it, Brownies.
That's
All right. Speaking of building on some stuff, I wanted to kind of touch very briefly on the Giants. I think that they're kind of retooling. They kind of see some potential to take that division. The Cowboys are kind of an unknown product with Dak, because even last year when he was healthy, they weren't actually winning games. So I think the Giants showed a lot of promise last year, being able to shut down teams with the team that they were fielding. It was so impressive in Joe Judge's first year as head coach. But they end up signing the top wide receiver in the free agent class, Kenny Golladay. They signed John Ross. I highlighted that because I think there's still something there. Kyle Rudolph, the tight end from Minnesota, and Adoree Jackson, cornerback from the Tennessee Titans. So a couple first round picks in John Ross and Adoree Jackson. If Adoree Jackson was a first round pick, I think. Wow, I'm terrible today. But anyways, yeah. So there's some name brand there. Kyle Rudolph, good tight end presence to go alongside Evan Ingram, and Kenny Golladay go on the opposite side of Sterling Shepard. I like what they're doing here, building around Daniel Jones, Zachary.
Yeah, it's a scary one. I'm going to say from experience here, it was Baker's second year, but, we felt that optimism going into that year. And I feel that same thing for Daniel Jones. They're just surrounding him with all this talent and high expectation. So I hope he doesn't get caught up in that. I hope they do ride Saquon Barkley and allow him to be the focal point and allow Daniel Jones to, not have so many turnovers.
God.
However, I actually really do like the sign of Kyle Rudolph. I know we have a really full tight end room in Cleveland, but I was hoping to find a way to get Kyle Rudolph there, maybe trade Njoku, just because of his experience with Stefanski there. But man, they've now surrounded Daniel Jones, man. It's kind of like, here's the third year. We've dealt with the turnovers. He's shown a little bit of flashes here, but I don't know if you want to agree with me on this one. But whenever I look at Daniel Jones, I'm like, he shows flashes of being, a good quarterback, but I never feel like, wow, this guy's special. And he's drafted at the 6th overall pick. So it's like, you almost want that, like, wow, this guy is special at points. Like the only time I felt like that was when he made that huge run up the middle and then he tripped and he kind of like stumbled on like what I was like, wow, that's amazing. Oh, he can't quite run too well. So that's kind of like how I explain his career. It's kind of like there's a fumble here and there, but he shows a little bit of good quality as well. So hopefully Kenny Golladay can be, a good anchor for him to throw the ball to and get a guy who he can really trust and let the ball rip there. But it's going to be a proving season. I don't think the Giants are going to come in here and they have their defense upgraded, but everyone sees trajectory and momentum coming forward and seeing like, oh, they're going to be good for sure this year with all these signings and all that. But that kind of scares me actually, because I'm like, they did have momentum at the end of last year, but that was a whole dumpster fire, that whole division. And, there's some good teams coming out of that division next year, roster wise, and one that also had a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. So, I think there's a bigger hurdle than what people are giving credit for these Giants, and they're putting a lot on Daniel Jones. but I can see where the optimism is coming from, but I think we need to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a polarizing spot to be a Giants fan right now because you're looking at the division last year and you had, I don't know what the exact number was, but that, like, the Cowboys without Dak was a dumpster fire. The Eagles, Carson Wentz was literally the worst quarterback in the league last year, and the Redskins were fielding Dwayne Haas King for much of last year before giving it to Alex Smith, who also wasn't much better. So I'm with you, Zach. I think that the Giants do need to kind of they do need to actually take a step, because last year it was really quite handed to them in some ways. Even though they didn't make the playoffs and win the division, they were still in very well in position to do so at 7-9 or whatever they finished, 6-10. And so it's not you're right, it's Daniel Jones, it's the Daniel Jones show. And can he take that step? Because he's got the best running back in the league. He's got one of the better wide receivers. Hopefully he comes back from injury okay, but one of the better wide receivers in the league. And Sterling Shepard's really held his own. So I really like what they've done. It's all on him now. Joe Judge can only coach up the defense and special teams so much. And we saw it with Miami. It's such a coincidence that they're both Belichick disciples, but with Brian Flores and the Dolphins, their defense and special teams carried their offense a lot of times, and they still didn't get the playoffs at 10-6. So Daniel Jones needs to be a factor, and it's just a matter of time. So I don't know. He hasn't shown us much.
He also has Jason Garrett as his offensive coordinator, and I will give props to Jason Garrett as a coordinator prior to his head coaching run. I don't dislike him as a coordinator too. I'd say he's a pretty good coordinator. So
I heard Jason Garrett, and it instantly made me chuckle. I don't know if you heard that, but I can't take him seriously just because of the head coaching thing. But I guess maybe he's good as a coordinator.
I like Jason. I don't hate Jason Garrett. I think he's good as an offensive coordinator. It'll take time. They better show something this year. There's a lot on the line here. So
yeah. Well, it'd be very, very interesting, because if Daniel Jones is mediocre, they might find themselves in like a awkward spot next year's draft, trying to get a quarterback. So
right.
yeah. All right, so moving on, got a couple big signings here. Justin Simmons with the Denver Broncos. I know our boy Tomac was wanting them to re-sign them after the Broncos hit him with the tag. One of the better safeties in the league. I don't think that you ever let these guys go. I think he's only 26, and so being able to cash in, that is a very nice pickup for the Broncos. Zach, what are your thoughts on this, if any?
Yeah, love that guy. I was actually hoping he'd hit free agency and the Browns could tickle his fancy, but I'm happy with what we got. But good for the Broncos. He's an anchor on that team.
Awesome. And next we've got Bud Dupree, who tore his ACL last year with the Steelers, but was quite a force when he was healthy in prior years. I always remember when the Patriots would play them as kind of like a little bit scared of Bud Dupree, and always wishing that he'd make his way to the Patriots. But the Titans signed him to a monstrous deal worth 16.5 per year at 5 years, 82.5 million. Coming off an ACL, it never feels right to give a guy a 5-year deal, but at the same time, edge rushers or outside linebackers at 16.5 million. It's not top of the market money, but it's kind of there. And I don't know. I feel cringy about it. I don't feel good about it as a Titans fan. Zach, what are your thoughts?
If you wanted to bet on this, so he's coming off an ACL tear. I don't think he was ever the number one with the Steelers. I would give that to Watt more of the time. And he was the complimentary guy. And the Steelers have a great system. Would you bet, would you put 80 some million 5 years on a guy coming off an ACL tear, the second fiddle in a defense that makes guys really, really good, and you're going to Tennessee, who has hurt guys like Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney, to be absolute dog crap. And you're going to pay this guy that much money to be the anchor of your team now. I think this is a bad signing. I know edge rushers are at a premium, but like you're stacking everything up against Bud Dupree. If you would have said he went to New England for this, I would have been like, that makes sense. Bill Belichick gets the best out of his players. He knows how to position them correctly here. And all we've seen from Tennessee here is putting these guys in the worst possible case to succeed. And then now paying him a huge amount of money after getting injured, being second fiddle to the first edge rusher on a team that makes him look good. I can't say it enough. I really do think this is a bad signing, actually. And I hope it eats my word. I eat my words here, but I just don't see that paying off for that kind of payday.
Oh, Zach, you're making me cringe. Lash, our resident Titans fan, oh man, I feel my heart goes out to him because I know you're right. They signed Vic Beasley last year, hoping for a revitalization. They signed Jadeveon Clowney. They've done this, they've done that. They need help. They were desperate, and I don't know, like, this is such a desperate signing. I get it, but I'm not a fan of it because, like you said, there's a lot of risk here. Hopefully Mike Vrabel can coach him up, but Mike Vrabel has done a really good job as a head coach in Tennessee, but he hasn't, I don't know if he's really coached up a defense. Like maybe
it's
has
gone
at
worse.
times. Like the secondary last year was definitely one of the worst in the league, especially near the end of the year. And the front seven was non-existent. That's the main reason why the secondary was so bad, is because they're getting hung out to dry. So it's just so tough. I hope that it works out, but yeah, I'm totally with you. I don't know if it's really gonna. I think that this is just desperation at its finest, and the Titans definitely need answers in the draft.
No, I agree. I've the Tennessee Titans, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings here, are on a downward trajectory now. The offense has grown as Vrabel's been there, and when Tannehill's in there and they're able to run the ball effectively, he's able to hit the ball deep downfield. But man, that defense each year has just been like down. So like we gotta. And now you said it the best there too. It was a desperation signing, and those are the worst, man. Those are the scariest, because it's going to be so much dead money if it doesn't work, and then trying to offload them for what you're paying. It's not a good situation.
Cringe everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, next signing. This one I heard the Patriots were in on them after their first early spending spree, and I got super pumped, but ultimately Washington wins out and gets Curtis Samuel at a nice little 3-year, $34.5 million deal. I had it here. Is that right? 34. Oh, wow. My memory's good. Heck yeah. After it was terrible earlier. Anyways, I love this signing for Washington. Washington's roster, even last year, I thought was really good with the exception of quarterback. I thought Haas King would have done it, but no. I really like what they're doing here, Zach. You got, is it Antonio Gibson at running back, if I remember his name correctly? Now my memory again. Terry McLaurin, and now you get Curtis Samuel. And I love these weapons on offense. I think that any quarterback, if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick or if they turn to the draft, I really like what they've got on offense here with those pieces alone.
Yeah. So Auzzy, on this one, I do like the signing. Curtis Samuel is not one of those wide receivers who's a number one or a number two. He's a gadget player. You get him in there, he's super fast. You can do sweeps with him. You can get him underneath, hopefully break him free for a nice chunk once or twice a game. And that's kind of what you're looking at with him. He can also play running back, which is great for a few plays a game as well. Another bonus here is Ron Rivera's had him on his team when he was with the Panthers. So the familiarity is also there, which is really exciting for this signing. To make this perfect for me, we need to figure out the second wide receiver spot. And then we need to address tight end for a long-term answer. Logan Thomas there at tight end. He's not the long-term answer for me. So it's good. They added a weapon, which they really needed to do. Now they kind of have that trio of Gibson, McLaurin, and Curtis, younger younger trio there with whoever they're going to draft or get at quarterback for the long term. That's exciting. Their line is getting better. They have Scherf. They just re-signed him last year, I think, to a big deal, which is exciting for them. He's really good. They just need to now figure out that number 2 wide receiver and then figure out some depth at tight end. And I'm going to be like really excited for this team. That defense is on the upward trajectory. They're going to look really good next year, I think, if they keep building and building off what they've done, which I think with all those rushers on the front line in today's NFL where you need to get to the passer, they're going to do it very, very well. So I think this is a good signing if all the pieces fall well this next little bit.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot with in terms of the draft too, because they made the playoffs. I definitely don't envy their positioning right now, because they are in a spot where Ryan Fitzpatrick is definitely not the answer at quarterback, but he showed last year that he can set a team on a really good path, and he did that with the Dolphins. I would have been curious. I liked what they did with starting Tua, to go on a little bit of a tangent. The Dolphins starting Tua after Fitzpatrick started them off really well, but I would have liked to see how he would have taken that, or where he would have taken that team if he kept the starting job, because he even came in relief a couple times and looked really well. So he's still got lots of good football left in the tank, it looks like. So I think that if you have a year of Ryan Fitzpatrick, with maybe you draft a wide receiver in the first round this year and kind of they get that number 2, like you were saying, Zach, maybe there's something here with this Washington team where they can catch lightning in a bottle and really make a push to win this division a second time, even with a healthy Dak and the Cowboys and the Giants, as we had already mentioned. It's tough. The bridge quarterback thing, it's very, very tricky, and there's no one size fits all. Everybody seems to do it differently, but that's kind of the glaring thing that I see as well. But anyways, those Redskins, they look feisty. Speaking of former Redskins, look at that segue.
Washington football team.
Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. Oh, gosh, I'm the worst. Okay.
That's okay.
Football team. Sorry, guys. Wow, I'm living in 2019 over here. So Trent Williams, the former left tackle for the football team, now with the 49ers, signs a monster of a deal, Zachary. 6 years, $138,060,000. The 60,000 just to put him over the edge as the top.
Yeah.
Put him over by 10,000 as the highest paid left tackle over David Bakhtiari, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But he's 33 this year. This July, he turns 33, Zach. A 6-year deal, 33-year-old Trent Williams. Take me through the thought process. What are your thoughts?
So the one thing I'll argue for San Francisco is O-linemen have a better chance, in my opinion, to age like fine wine. However, 138 million for 6 years for a 33-year-old Williams who has had a little bit of injury problems here and there scares the shit out of me for the amount of money you're going to pay him at that ripe age. You know, if they would have done like a 2-year deal for like a high cap hit, 3-year deal, it made sense. But this guy's not 27 years old anymore. 33, like he'll be 39 by the time he's done that contract. And not everyone's Andrew Whitworth. Like, I don't know. It's a lot of money. And I would hope in that contract, and there probably is something like this, as it gets closer to the end of the contract, there's probably going to be less dead money and options for, say, if he goes into retirement or something, there's some kind of buyout option that won't hurt the cap as much. I think it's going to be more of a front heavy contract, but still that's a lot of money for a 33-year-old left tackle with a little bit of injury history. He's good though. I will say that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot of lettuce. But yeah, I was just gonna say, sorry, I was shuffling around. I had to turn the light on. but yeah, I'm curious what the contract looks like in terms of opt-outs, because the 49ers were pretty savvy when they signed Garoppolo to that monstrous deal, where there was some opt-out clauses in the event that he was trash. And
Right.
so, or not what they thought he would be. So 55 million total guaranteed in this deal. And so that's actually not too bad. Guaranteed at signing 40 million. Yeah, there's a potential out after 2023 season, which would end up being a 3-year, $60,600,000 deal with 12 million in dead cap. Not terrible. So after his 35 age season, you're getting that potential out. You hate to eat 12 million in dead cap, but the TV deal will have hit at that after that or right before that season. So who knows? The cap could get pretty crazy. And like you said, left tackles could age like a fine wine. Trent Williams, we'll see. But if it this is so funny. Like if it works out that he stays healthy and he does it, like he's one of the best left tackles still in the game. So it makes sense. You pay that. But it's still that there's always a risk reward with these contracts when you're giving them out. And when you're given top end money, it's like, oh, I'd want him to be 27 right now. That would be kind of the, but you just can never, you got to take those risks. Apparently Kansas City was in on him. I would have ate a shoe if Kansas City got Trent Williams after also signing my guy Joe Tooney from the Patriots. I would have been so sad that they get like one of the best offensive lines with that roster already. So I'm just happy the 49ers did it instead of the Chiefs. So thank you, Kyle Shanahan and company. All right.
That being said, there's some good tackles on the market from KC still on the board too. So, but that's for when they figure it out elsewhere.
Exactly. A couple injuries there. Yeah. Oh man, so this one's so fun to talk about. Zach, your dad, Bears fan, Billy Bob's Bears, Zachary Bathory's Bears, and the Chicago Bears get their quarterback of the future with Andy Dalton. They go from making an all-out push for Russell Wilson. They had offered Kyle Fuller, Akeem Hicks, 3 first-round picks, and a third or a second round pick somewhere in there. Didn't get Russell Wilson, but they did get Andy Dalton. Zach, oh gosh, what's Bob got to say about this? Billy Bob. You know what I was going for. What Billy Bob got to say?
I actually haven't had a conversation with him about it yet. Last conversation I had with him about football was about the potential of getting Russell Wilson. So this will be kind of fall off from there. Here's my opinion on it. You're bringing in a guy on a 1-year contract pretty much for the same price as Nick Foles and pretty much the same player as Nick Foles. Maybe a bit better regular season wise and such. I don't hate Andy Dalton, and I was impressed with how he developed in the system with the Cowboys last year, but it's just disappointing, I guess, as like a Bears fan. You've never done well at quarterback. They never have. The team is arguably the worst team ever with the quarterback position. Jay Cutler being their one standout. And is that a standout? I don't know. So, I do think I think Andy Dalton, if we're looking at it from an upgrade, I do think it is an upgrade from what they had last year. I think he is better. He's a better regular season quarterback than Nick Foles is. So if what they could do, like if they play Andy Dalton during the regular season and then give Nick Foles the reins during the postseason, if they make it, man, this might be the greatest deal we've ever seen, man. They go all Winnipeg Blue Bombers on us kind of style and have the two quarterbacks because they're totally opposite. Nick Foles always shows up in the postseason and Andy Dalton never shows up in the postseason and is great during the regular season when he had a team around him. So I'm gonna try and play devil's advocate a bit. I do think Andy Dalton is an upgrade there. I think he protects the ball better than both of them. And, he has a little bit of upside he does have a pretty good arm talent as well. And he's a leader. So we'll give a little bit more credit. I think the reason everyone's so hard on this sign is because the potential of Russell Wilson, a huge fall off.
Yeah.
I get it. But at the same token, if we're going for a bridge quarterback, for a guy who could come in and run the team, Andy Dalton's actually a pretty good pickup. I don't want to be that guy being like, oh, Zach, really? You're going to go for it? I'm just saying, like, it could have been a lot worse with free agency. I don't hate Andy Dalton. I've seen him play a lot. And when he has the right team around him, the right offensive coordinator, he was more than a serviceable quarterback. So I don't know. It's technically an upgrade, but they still need an upgrade.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I think you're right in that it was more so just the fall off. It's like I thought that I had the $70 million jackpot ticket, but it was just a free play. So that's kind of the fall off, that it was like for thinking the Bears were going to get Russell Wilson. And because a year ago when the Cowboys signed Andy Dalton, I was like, yes, Andy Dalton, he's going to take the reins from Dak. He's going to be well in that system and with those weapons. So I was hyping up Andy Dalton just a year ago. And I think that you're right. I think that he could do well in the right system. And Matt Nagy is a good coach. He's an explosive coach that has weapons that they can possibly excel with Andy Dalton at quarterback. The way I kind of see Andy Dalton actually is almost like a hybrid between Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. He's kind of got that mobility aspect that Mitch Trubisky offered, but he's got a little bit more of that higher throwing ability that Nick Foles can show at sometimes. So that's kind of like it's very interesting that they end up going Andy Dalton, where he's kind of like the mix of the two quarterbacks that they had. So yeah, I think that they've kept Allen Robinson. Poor Allen Robinson couldn't get out of Chicago, but they keep him. I heard that they're trying to trade Anthony Miller. Not sure why that would be the case, but they've got some good weapons there, and
Mooney.
Yeah, it could really. What's that? Sorry.
Mooney, the rookie last
Mooney
year,
did really well
amazing.
last year.
So
yeah,
maybe they're trying to get rid of, because I know Anthony Miller was supposed to have a huge breakout season last year. That's what everyone was talking about. I fell into that in fantasy. I picked him up, but it just didn't happen. So hopefully they're feeling like another team will take a 25-year-old turning 26 and hopefully get that potential out of him. But man, Mooney looked good. For me, maybe it's because my dad's a fan of the Bears. I didn't mean to cut you off, dude. I'm sorry. But there's this also weird sense of optimism I have for them too. Khalil Mack had a down season. Maybe he comes back top. But like maybe Andy Dalton brings a little stability. Montgomery was amazing at the end of the year, like freaking unreal. If he comes out guns a-blazing again and Andy Dalton's able to bring some stability to Allen Robinson and Mooney keeps playing up to it. They also got what's his face in the draft last year, the top tight end, Kmet.
Oh, Cole Kmet, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an exciting thing as well. So people are just shitting on the Bears right now because of what had happened with Russell Wilson, but let's take a step back and look at the big picture. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I definitely am with you, and I'm not just saying that just to be agreeable. I definitely think that the more I think about it is definitely the shock factor of going from a Russell Wilson to an Andy Dalton. It's fun to poke fun at the Bears, but yeah, at the end of the day, Andy Dalton, he excelled. Excelled. He was average in a Cincinnati situation where it wasn't really built for success. So, and then last year he had flashes with that Cowboys team when he wasn't injured. So I will give it a shot. I think that it is a good signing. He's like the perfect bridge quarterback right now because he's not too old. I would prefer him over Ryan Fitzpatrick, for example. So I definitely don't mind it. And with the weapons in place, this team is definitely in a spot where it can at least keep where they were at, where that kind of like 8-8 range, 9-7. So that's my take, and you Bears fans can enjoy it. Yeah. I wish I could be more optimistic for you. Okay, lastly, on the top ones that we wanted to kind of highlight, and it's Shaquille Griffin from the Seahawks. Steve Seahawks signs with the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 3-year, $30 million deal. Zach, you need to correct me on this one. Is that it?
I think
3
it was
years, 30?
39 million. I think it was like
Oh yeah,
39,
13
almost
million
40.
a
I think it
year.
was,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're
But
right.
that's
You're
good. That
right.
was close. You hit the 3. So
That's yeah, I aim for mediocrity. So okay. Oh, 3 years, 40 million. Wow. So I actually didn't get the 3
oh,
right. Okay,
oh,
so there we are,
shit.
mediocre Oz. So this one's an interesting one because Shaquille Griffin was a polarizing figure in his own right, having quite the up and down year. Got picked apart against the Packers in the 2019 playoffs. It was quite embarrassing for him. He's shown that he can be kind of a number one. He's kind of like a 1B type cornerback. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars hope to have gotten their guy to kind of secure one side of the field. I don't hate it because he does have that potential. And with the Jaguars, they're rebuilding. They kind of need to get these guys in. You need talent. Get in a guy that has that potential to be a shutdown guy, but he's not like a true shutdown guy. That's really all I got to say about this one. I think that it's a good, he's a good foundational piece for this defense to kind of regroup.
Man, did the Jaguars not learn from Byron from the freaking Seattle Seahawks? Byron, what the hell was his name? The corner who broke off from them and like signed a huge deal with Miami, I think, and just ate shit. He was like the second guy after Richard Sherman. But I'm not totally trying to go against you here, but you explained it really well with him being like that 1B guy. It's too many ups and downs for me to sign him to anything above 10 million a year, in my opinion. I think his market would have been better at like a 6 to 7 million for that second place corner that can kind of like, he's not going to shut down one side of the field, but he's going to have he has the potential to have a big play. And I'm not going to go against like what you said with him in regards to he got picked apart real bad the playoffs against Green Bay, I think it was, you said. But the next year he had a lot of ups and downs, which if you put too much on a guy like that, they can fold under pressure. And right now with Jacksonville, it felt exactly like how you said. They're trying to just get as much talent as they can. They know they're getting Trevor Lawrence. They want to go on a run here. But because you have money doesn't mean you just spend it on the available guy that you think can be. I don't know. I don't even look at Shaquille Griffin. I'm not trying to be hard on Seattle fans. I don't look at him even as like the potential to be that top one cornerback. I look at him as that number 2 guy always. And you're too inconsistent to be the number 1 guy always. And it was a big money deal for a guy who's going to get beat too much for anything above 10 million a year. And I don't know the logistics of that contract. It might be a little bit less than that in guaranteed money, maybe more incentive, and I feel better about that then, but it's not.
I was just looking at it while you're talking too, because I was kind of curious and I was hoping that it was a little bit more incentive based. It's not. At best, it's a 2-year deal, 26 million, so still at 13 average, and there'd be 4 million dead cap with that potential out. Otherwise, it's the 3 for 40. So yeah, 29 guaranteed at signing, so not ideal on that contract.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical on it, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are going to say like Jacksonville just needed to upgrade there, but look at Jacksonville and what they're doing right now. Young team, building from the draft. They got a corner last year in the first round, and a lot of young pass rushers up front. I guess Shaquille kind of joins in with that young group. I think he's turning 27 this year. However, I don't know if that's my guy on who I want to build it around being my number one, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I wish I had a list of the cornerbacks that were available, because I don't feel like there couldn't have been that many if Shaquille Griffin's getting paid. I guess.
No, I don't think
he
it
was
was.
getting. William Jackson was the highest paid corner as of. I guess William Jackson was the only other option, and he's 29. So you got Shaquille Griffin, apparently the next best thing. I'm looking at this quarterback or this cornerback free agent class, and it's really not that great actually. So I guess they probably just had to get somebody. But to your point too, you said you don't just throw money just because you can. So it's a tough spot. You need to replenish that position. It's kind of like the Patriots all over again, where you needed to fill positions, so you'll throw a little bit of money at like kind of those middling guys, but just to get depth. But 13 million, that kind of puts him 25th highest paid corner. So not top end money, which is good, but yeah, it's still a boom or bust selection, kind of like that Bud Dupree pick. A little less risky though.
I was gonna compare it to that, to be honest, but not with the injury.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that just about does it. I don't have any other notes, so I mean, we could probably talk another 2.5 hours, Zach. But I'm sure that our listeners are like, "Gosh, I spent an hour listening to free agency recap with these buckaroos, so I better sign off," is what they're saying. So well, Steve will be back next week, I think, and join us. I don't know what we have on tap. Usually he's the schedule guy, but thank you for tuning in. Zachary, I guess, where can the fine folks find you? That's what Steve usually asks.
That's right. They can find me living the dream. I'm going to bring that back this episode. On Twitter at Zach Foth and on Instagram at ZachFoth_. Send me a message. Let's have a conversation, and we'll go from there.
Beauty. And not if you're a single woman, because that might not look too good. Zach's handcuffed.
I definitely meant that in football orientation. That was not a free pass for like dating women, things like that. That's not what I meant. Football. Let's talk football.
Oh yeah, let's talk some football. I would like to do the same. I don't talk with anybody, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustinPaul_. That's Austin with a Y, not an I. You can find the Amateur Agency on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the Amateur Agency. Twitter's at Amateur Agency, too many characters. And check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this at this point, you're literally on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in, and share it or comment or tag or whatever you do on YouTube. Subscribe. Yeah, subscribe. That helps. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night. Oh, I was going to end the meeting. I just need to end the recording. And how do you do that? Top corner.